Let's see how much it affects them here as we get into the game.
Let's take stock of the pick and bans before we speculate further, because Cloud9 and Griffin, I think, are both looking for identity performance. Griffin got over the line yesterday. The early game in the level 1 was something they'd like to avoid. Chovy has been on form so far this tournament, but it's largely been solo manufactured advantages, because again, that Chovy-Tarzan partnership hasn't really got going, and Blabber staying in is always a very interesting thing to speculate on.
Yeah, and I think Spawn brought it up on the desk. The fact that the MVP of the LCS isn't playing has to make you wonder what's been going on in scrims, but then you also have to remember it's a team coached by Reaper, and he just subs in all of his players and has always said they're planning on using the 7-man roster. And Blabber's Elise did look very good yesterday. Jankos was pushed into, what, 4 or 5 deaths on the Kiana, as Blabber did have a good early game performance.
Well, the Yumi's going to be locked away. Lehens, when this champion first came out, he was just the best player.
He was the Yumi a lot of people learned from, the pro build lit up by pros around the world, but interestingly, in interviews, he's been misleading, because he said, this pick is trash now, I'm not going to pick it anymore. Turns out, the best find a way, and we've already seen 60k damage Yumis in this tournament already.
We actually have. And one of them was against Cloud9.
Is it happening?
It is.
It's Soda Tom Kench against a Korean.
What patch is it? What month is it?
What kind of mind games is this? And
Soda
Griffin lock in the Garen Yumi.
Wait, which is the better non-interactive bot lane?
This is just the darkest time.
This is the darkest timeline.
What is happening?
Wait, maybe we need to go back talking about the glory days of League of Legends, because it doesn't seem to be right now.
Wait, I just need to stop you guys just for 1 second. Look at these picks. If it was 2 years ago, you'd have no idea where they're going.
You would be waiting for the remake.
Well, first on, you'd wonder why there's a cat in the game.
Why are there 2 supports on Cloud9's side? They must be trolling. This is crazy.
To me, these 2 duo lanes coming in makes me extra interested to know about solo lanes, because the game will likely be played around side lanes at some point here. So taking stock, you do notice one of the premier side laners, AD Twisted Fate, has been banned away by Griffin.
Yeah, and actually thinking about how these 2 lanes will interact or not.
Talk to me, Jack. Give me the straight on that.
The Tahm Kench can roam a lot and can actually be a bit of a menace in invading enemy jungle camps, because his early game dueling is still really high. So maybe Sneaky is just a solo Sona in lane after Tahm Kench uses his relic shields and goes to roam.
But does that mean that we're not going to be seeing any Frostmancy going on there? Is Tahm Kench not going to be farming?
I also don't know how Cloud9's ever going to have enough damage to kill Garen.
Let's hold our point, because this draft could go anywhere. We're already just absolutely bemused by the start. Got to see a solo laner, usually Sword. Won't get the blind pick, but this time he will get the counter pick. Interesting, as the LeBlanc is rolled in from Griffin.
How many supports can we pick up? Remember, this is Lehens. He actually got to Challenger playing support Elise. So they're looking at Cloud9, they're like, they've got 4 supports. How can they do it? That is looking like a Fiora, though. Licorice going for some split push, potentially, but it would be blind. That'd be scary.
But remember, it's blind against Sword, whose champion range doesn't include fighters that beat Fiora traditionally. Usually he's on tank duty. He lost a lot of reverse matchups, even with the advantage in the LCK, largely in spring. So against the expected range, and now a champion that actually can kill Garen with true damage, I actually don't hate blind Fiora. It looks bold, but to me, it's more on the calculated side.
I completely agree, and it's putting the carry for Licorice on a champion that can actually carry late game. So even though Aatrox looked great for him yesterday, he was able to 1v5. Fiora's a champion that could theoretically do so.
And I really like the Zoe here as well. It does shore up that mid game, allows them to bridge towards that 4-1 composition and get that poke in as we move on. The last pick for Griffin is going to be so pivotal, as Sword is going to lock away the gangplank.
It's bold, but it is a champion that can trade pretty decently in the early game. You wonder if he might have considered a super tank, if not for the fact that they need damage in this comp. So I think they were in a kind of awkward spot. You could have tried to Ornn here and try to just wait out as long as possible and then look for the big TP. He's not a Rumble player or anything like that. So with the decisions he had, he pulls trigger on the GP. And it's champion pool this season, and Summer's kind of Jason, really nothing else. So we wondered which direction he would go in.
Yeah, and the second game in a row as well, Viper has avoided an AD carry. Third game in a row that Sneaky has as well. So of all the groups, this is the one where we're seeing the most weird stuff in the bot lane.
And fans have been calling out for Sneaky to play an AD carry. We're not going to get it in the third time of asking here in the first round robin. So you're going to have to hold your horses, guys. It will be that Sona coming in this game, but there's a whole another round robin to wait for next week.
And there's a chance the early game in the bottom lane is low action, but with Elise in and an Elise in the game on Tarzan and Blabber, we might still see some early action.
Yep, and it's going to be Chovy's LeBlanc there as well coming out of the mid lane, so the action is going to start relatively soon. We'll see how Griffin is going to navigate this. Low range on both sides. Let's get into the 5th game of the day. Here we are onto the rift for C9 versus Griffin. C9 on the blue side, and they've picked the Sona Tamkench.
And my mind feels congested. I'm not sick for clarity. I know there's things going around the casting team, but I'm trying to make sense of a lot of things. For example, the Sona Tamkench versus Garen Yuumi. That's not a lane that we've seen on the professional stage. Probably not even in solo queue too much. By any means, we have to again mention the fact that Griffin are coming off some turmoil with their squad in a very public setting, you know, during the World Championship, which is not ideal preparation. It will have to affect them to a degree, but it's not going to be something we can really speculate on any further, because right now we got to make sense of these drafts, Chad.
Yeah. Sona Tamkench, it's the first picker ban for both of those champions at the World Championship. It moves us to 89 unique picker bans so far, and why is it always C9 who seems to be the ones?
I don't know.
They bring so many unique picks to World Championships throughout the year, and there's usually a very good reason for it.
But most of the time we're excited about them, Jat. When it's Sona Tamkench, we're not. This is boring. Bottom lane is not exciting stuff.
I'm going to poll the room here. In 2 years' time, when we look back and we're like, oh, Sona Tamkench meta and Garen Yuumi meta, which one will draw the bigger
Sona Tamkench, definitely. But
I'm going to say Garen Yuumi.
There you go. See, split test we got going on here. I'm not going to vote. I'm going to abstain.
Oh, wow, look at you. If you had to vote, what would you say, Papa Smithy?
So, okay.
I'm keeping quiet.
He's gone.
The one who asks the questions doesn't have to answer them. That's how he gets
Apparently, yeah. This is, Papa makes the rules, okay? Papa on the desk, Papa's rules.
My desk now.
So, Sona Kench is a stronger lane, but worse team fighting than Sona Taric. I'm actually pretty surprised that C9 didn't just go Sona Taric in this one, since there's not going to be any lane pressure from the Garen Yuumi.
And also, isn't the Sona Taric the NA thing? I thought that was what you guys did, and over in Korea, we really liked the Sona Tamkench.
Liquid did it in Game 5 of the finals against C9 to victory. So there's definitely more expertise on this than pretty much anywhere else in the world. Even when Sona Kench made its huge resurgence, it was 100% in NA. It was only ever 30 or 40% globally, and then it basically fell off globally, and NA still kept doing it. So it is more practiced for them in terms of how to navigate the mid and late game.
Tarzan is trying to match the top side and gets the information that Elise is here. We talked already about the pivotal top lane matchup with the blind pick Fiora to ramp up the pressure on Sword. Doesn't seem like any Krugs going to be claimed by Tarzan to begin. Sword has played 147 professional games before this, only his second game of Gangplank ever. So even though a lot of tank top laners bridged to GP pretty naturally, not a lot of skill shots outside the chain link barrel, it's not necessarily comfort at all for the GP and Sword.
Well, Chovy going to take a bit of a nap there. Niski going to even out that trade in the mid lane as Blabber makes his way down. His activity in the early game is what Blabber was known for. He's going to make his way to the mid lane, but not find too much. Zeyzal is going to have a look at the Rift Scuttler.
Double Scuttle. Not that bad for Blabber in terms of getting control and also able to take away Tarzan's Krugs. Tarzan is still being as efficient as he can be, though, in taking camps from Blabber.
And in case you're wondering about the mechanics there, remember that Sneaky has targeted, harass, and a ranged auto attack. So actually, when it comes to lane priority, we'll get it more regularly in the early game to be able to push up, not worried about multiple levels in the Prowling Projectile. So I was actually thinking back and thinking, okay, both Yumi and Sona are going to be free farming in this lane, no doubt, when it comes to stacking up their GP10s or their gold items here through the Spell Thieves, but probably going to be advantage sneaky, especially with the Klepto thrown in.
Yeah, and my understanding of the scaling of Garen Yumi has evolved as I've seen it more at this World Championship. I think it scales really well. So in a lot of Garen Yumi lanes, the Garen is unable to CS. This is a lane where even though it's like a bunch of supports into Garen, I might regret saying this, it's almost like 2 hyper carries in the lane.
Oh, God.
Just because a level 16 Sona with high gold is ridiculously powerful, and a high gold Yumi Garen is almost impossible to kill.
And I like that you bring that up because Fnatic did show that, right? They won with the Garen Yumi in the later stages of the game. And it was a hell of a lot of damage coming out from that Yumi.
And I saw a lot of games in the LCS where Sona would hit level 16 and just completely take over. So there's a chance both these bottom lanes are content farming because they scale.
And I'm willing to walk with you on this hyper carry idea. Just because
it's out there.
It used to be
hyper carry Garen, by
back
the way.
in your heyday, Season 2 casting, as Zazel takes some damage here. You know, hyper carry was a Vayne, right? It was hyper carry of damage only. Let me continue here.
Hyper scale?
Yes, that part I agree.
Better.
But
That's
even
better.
hyper carry, you can have a hyper carry of utility, and Sona spends gold really well. Level 16, she scales with levels really well. And then on the other side, the Garen might be a hyper carry of tankiness, because how do you kill that boy when he's got his items going? He is very thick.
And he has his catwalk as well, you know, which is very important to him.
Also, Licorice went Grasp. Potentially for the lane phase. I was expecting a Conqueror if he was going to ever kind of shred through in the late game. Grasp can still be powerful. Fiora can still do a lot of true damage with the ultimate, but Blabber still trying to do work.
Yep, face check there from Chovy. Great repel to avoid the distortion damage, but Blabber still in trouble. Misses the chain. Does Chovy, so they get out. As Sneaky's been lit on fire. Down to 200 health, is going to survive and gets a bit of gold back there as well. Nicely done.
So the reason behind the grasp is the fact that early, GP can just shoot you in the face a lot. You actually have a huge health discrepancy, so I think you have to go semi-respectfully, because guess what? You get your 2 items, your Ravenous Hydra and Trinity Force, and it works out. So no reason to be bold in the early game when there's still that air of inevitability about 25, 30 minutes into the game.
Well, having a look at how Sword is doing up towards the top side of the map, he's falling behind Licorice, who's been able to lane very well. Sword been struggling in a few matchups despite being able to keep up in that farm for most of the time. This time, not so lucky. Sneaky with a power cord there onto the cat, avoids the damage. Does Lehens. And I think this is going to be a great test. I feel like this is the way you see how good a Yumi is by putting them in this lane, because it's all about the Yumi. It's not about the Garen. The Garen is a vessel for the Yumi.
Yep, and they both share gold. The double support items empowers both of them. Another thing that I think actually empowers some of these different lanes is the fact that they both get to generate gold from their support items, and it's not so much like a full Sona carry or a full Yumi or Garen carry. It's picking champions that are good on a medium amount of income, because normally in League you only have the carry roles and the support roles, and oftentimes it's junglers who end up being kind of medium in pro. So I was kind of theorizing when this happened, like how many other champions you could see in there that would be good on medium income. Garen is actually one of them, and he ends up showing up here.
Just feel that there's going to be no action in this game until about 18 minutes into it.
And
who does that benefit, though, guys?
Probably Griffin.
What about Fiora, though?
Yeah.
And Sona, the hyper scaling
I think
support carry.
I look at Fiora running at GP, and I feel like there's very few instances where that works for the GP. So it's very interesting to consider, but we should mention that C9 got a big lead on the first game they played as bot lane.
Yeah, final chapter comes out there as Lehens does get the double root down, but the Devour is in. Zazel down to some grey health, but it looks like C9 are going to be able to make their way out. And Sneaky now just going to get to triaging with that W.
But again, remember, they had a big lead with their Heimerdinger comp and didn't really seem to know how to close the game for a long time. So playing 3 lanes, actually allowing Fiora's side lane pressure to close rather than solo kills, hasn't been their forte most recently.
Yeah, and I want to get back to that, but I don't want to jump over this dragon as Griffin takes it, and I want to see if C9 is able to contest.
Well, Blabber at the moment not looking like he's going to attempt to, Jat. Unfortunately, he has some Krugs that have been rubber banded towards the bottom side. Chovy not going to find any chains or anything like that to answer the little nap that he took, courtesy of Niski, and this dragon will be taken down without a contest on Griffin's side. Having a look at the gold, however, it is still a slight advantage for C9. And the Mountain Drake not going to change team fights so much, although Licorice probably would have liked it for smacking down these turrets.
Yeah, definitely would have helped in the later game. But back to the point of just like trying to piece together these team compositions. If I think back to how the Garen Yuumi took over mid games, they could cut teams in half by just having Garen kind of run between them, and they'd spread, and then they'd pick off the one side of the Yuumi. But while doing that, they'd consistently get a high amount of poke on people, because the Luden's Yuumi would do that. They can't poke C9. So that is, in a way, that mid-game push back and forth will probably favor C9, because it would force Griffin into really hard engaging, whereas a lot of the time the Garen Yuumi is a poke comp that is just really hard to engage on. So the Sona, in that sense, can counter the poke comp.
There's other nuances in terms of matchups here, specifically mid lane. We saw a lot of Zoe versus LeBlanc over the last kind of year or so.
Yeah.
It's worth knowing that in Korea, what we saw was that it felt like at some point someone was like, yes, LeBlanc's the hard counter, let's run into that. But actually, by the end of the rotation, it is, no, just hit the bubble and you'll always win the trade as Zoe. So it ended up becoming a Zoe favored matchup on the tail end of this 1v1. So skill expression is definitely still real in a matchup that has now swung both ways.
And Chovy actually closest in CS, I believe, the entire tournament. Now up against Niski, who's having a decent time. Still has the most gold, even without Kleptomancy.
Everyone's rich.
They're switching about. You know, this is getting very, very close. As Sword taking some damage topside.
Yeah, the supports are just feeding each other for the gold. It's weird how Sword is actually the second lowest in the game here, but he is losing lane.
Is it weird?
As Gangplank, who has he has a cull, and he's Gangplank.
He hasn't cashed in the cull yet. He's still investing. Remember Gangplank, the investment banker. That's how that pirate works, is Blabber wants to pick up the Eye of the Herald, does so. C9 make it out, and they're going to be able to take some plates with this one as well. Still 3 minutes before they fall down.
And I feel like C9, at least early on, is adjusting pretty well to Griffin's slower pace. You almost get whiplash playing G2 one day and then Griffin the other. The highest combined kills per minute team at Worlds versus the lowest. But now Griffin actually trying to make something happen.
Yeah, final chapter comes down again. Cannon Barrage does absolutely nothing as Zeyzal, no flash available anymore as that prowling projectile takes a while to land. Does in the end, and Tarzan says, nope, we ain't diving this one. And Griffin back away.
Zeyzal doesn't have TP, not sure if he has an unsealed spellbook charge. Gonna assume no. Comes to getting that back to base. Still, they're gonna be able to farm, heal each other up, best friends forever. Tahm Kench and Sona. Doesn't matter how many times you nerf the Tahm Kench, he's found a new way to get back into the game to stack up some gold.
Sir Thomas Kench always returns, Papa Smithy. The River King will never leave. But he doesn't have any more summoner spells. Sneaky as well without his flash. So a possible return here for Tarzan, which is probably why he backed away, right? He didn't want to go for any sort of play when they'd already been able to have a successful engagement.
And we talked about how G2 had the perfect draft to beat Griffin. They went super scaling and it worked as TP's coming in.
Yeah, it's a lot of damage onto Tarzan there. He still has the kick. He's going to use it there. Waits for Chovy to make his way down, but the exit there from Blabber, the teleports from just about everyone on C9's side are going to mean that they all survive. However, not able to lock down the Lee Sin.
They can maybe make a play with the Rift Herald here. In fact, they'll jam it instantly. As I mentioned it, Chovy tries to move the minions as much as he can, but only so much he can do. Look at Lee Sin, he has to back, and the TP is invested, and at least the charge will come in truly.
Yep, so they're not going to lose the turret, will Griffin. However, that is a bit of plate gold, and also taking that outer turret down to half health is definitely high value. Chovy popping over the wall, and it looks like C9 want to continue this one. As Viper with the courage is going to keep himself alive. Grand challenge issued towards the top side. That's Licorice utilizing the riposte for damage as Sword is going to have to flash away.
And now he's flashless.
Gets the extra movement speed. Flash, good sidestep from Sword, but I don't know whether it's going to be enough. As Tarzan comes on down, Sword still alive for so long. The last one who gets there, but first blood goes to Tarzan.
But Blabber still dies for it. That's the Blabber aggression. Some of the reason you submit is because he's going for those plays. Some of the reasons you start Sven Skaren as well is because he gives it right back. First blood going to Tarzan, missing the cocoon, but still committing hard anyway.
And you never look for measured plays from Blabber. You look for aggression, and it ends up being the 1-for-1. Fiora will get a pretty decent reset from this. That's kind of the only side benefit on the side of Licorice, and guess what? That was a one trade before a first item. Now he'll just trade a plenty because every minion wave is a 300 heal.
Yeah, and with Ravenous Hydra, you can see why Blabber went for that gank so hard. Because, yeah, Licorice will get a big advantage off that, as you mentioned. Sword had to flash away. Blabber's tracking. Actually, a very good sidestep by Sword. If he doesn't have that, he is basically dead in the full combo after a few auto attacks, and then Blabber uses absolutely everything to get in there. Sword got maybe a little minion blocked on the way out, unable to escape.
I feel like Sword Like, if he hadn't have sidestepped the Cocoon, though, he was just straight up dead, and you don't get the return kill and the first blood goal going over to Tarzan. So certainly, fantastic play there from Sword. Want to see more of it here from the top laner that hasn't been the starting top laner for the last little while, only since returning to Worlds, as he retained his spot.
All right.
Blabber underneath the turret, not going to find Chovy as he continues walking all the way back to the distortion, but Chovy's still alive somehow as Blabber eventually takes him down, but that's a 1-for-1. Niski's going to be there. Cannon Barrage for fun, bit of a party, but not going to be able to get anything done there onto Niski.
That's a Blabber. Papa Smithy's just looking at me with his hands up in the air. It's just, that's just what you get. You can't really complain about it. He is killing enemy soul laners, so Niski and Licorice have been able to get free time off of Blabber's plays.
Yeah. Let's say youthful exuberance.
Youthful exuberance.
Love it. Well, we'll see whether the youthful exuberance is going to continue as we move towards the mid and late game, or whether it's going to be a benefit or a hindrance, I guess is the question, as we have a look at this play one more time. Chovy trying to get the fancy feet and not quite making it work completely.
The drowsy hit's not the paddle star to begin this, so Chovy's half health, we should mention. Blabber doesn't care about minion waves. He just goes and face tanks it. This is very aggressive at a minimum.
Chovy swaps back after the GP ultimate had been used, and then, oh wow, landing that root as he swapped back. Big play by Chovy to be able to trade that kill back.
Chovy never question his mechanics. That is rule number 1. But C9, they have a 900 gold lead. Things are going fine. Zeyzal on the River King in his natural habitat. Everything working out perfectly as this minion wave pushed towards the turret.
And let's go to the future. Let's skip over another 10 minutes and talk about Baron setups. Consider that C9 have heals for more people than are available for Lehens, because even with his charges, he's not going to be able to heal as much as a Sona, especially when that internal CDR that comes at level 11 and 16 starts to be factored in. There'll be lots of wards for everyone, so certainly vision exhaustion isn't really a thing to talk about. But with that amount of heals, with just the setups here, and the fact that Fiora will incidentally win a side lane, it does feel like if C9 runs for Baron for a while, might take 5-6 minutes, they should find a good lead there.
Well, the Ocean Drake has been started up here, but Chovy still lurking. No Cocoon to land as Niski doesn't get the bubble. But Chovy jumps on back, trying to get the damage down. It is a stopwatch. Baited out there from Blabber as Tarzan looking to safeguard himself out. Griffin have been split, and the Drake has been started here on C9's side. That is going to be the wrong LeBlanc. Still going to be taken down very, very low as Chovy trying to use that Corrupting Potion to get himself back up again. Chovy picks up his cat, moves on back, and the dragon is taken here from Blabber. Great kickback there for the disengage from Tarzan, but are they out of the woods just yet? With the safeguard, the answer is yes there for Tarzan, but that's a free dragon for C9.
A crucial timing was not available. Swords, Cannon Barrage, seconds available. Away from being available, used now.
Yep, now going to be coming down in this outer turret is okay. Viper down very low, but he's able to keep himself alive for a lot longer. Great health eaten at exactly the right time from Zeyzal so that ultimate didn't do enough damage. And Licorice in the meantime is just taking structures.
Yeah, these last minute or two have been very promising for C9. Just watching the way that Griffin is trying to interact with this Sona Kench and how ridiculously hard it's going to be for them to kill anyone. I almost feel like for Griffin to win this game, it has to be Tarzan and Chovy just hard carrying picks over and over again, because the 5v5 team fight looks very C9 favorite there.
And I look at the 17 minutes, and I can't help but think that this is more like a 4v4 in a single-player game that the Fiora is set up to win. If nothing's happening or equal amounts of healing and damage are done elsewhere, Fiora gets a turret, is pretty much how it goes. And especially if you try to be a bro on the GP and throw a Cannon Barrage for your team, you're definitely having to seed a turret because it's another tool you don't have in the 1v1.
Well, Tarzan is going to be able to pick up what feels like his first Rift Scuttler of the game. And Licorice returning towards that top side of the map, looking to try and get some damage down onto inner turrets now, as the Fiora is wont to do. Viper in the mid lane gets some zoomies. He's going to be okay as Griffin try to tidy this one up. Niski's on the bottom side. Griffin now thinking that they may have an opportunity. And guys, this is really crazy, but I'm thinking that I'm going to have to recommend some Morellonomicons this game. Because C9 have so much healing, the value for that one is really high. And I'd really like to see Executioner's Callings from anyone as well. Like, just stop the healing, guys.
Who would you like to buy the Executioner's Calling, Atlas?
Sword.
he's not actually around to apply it.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Cannon
Licorice-
Barrage can do it.
It's actually not bad in the 1v1,
Yeah.
but then you still probably die.
I think it's definitely the right call. Cash that call. Buy Execution is calling.
Well, that's only 6 to go. And he's not going to be able to afford the whole Execution is calling with that money, but we've seen Gangplanks with more issues than that when it comes to trying to afford things. That Nomad's Medallion from the last game certainly coming to mind is Chovy. That was really cute from Niski, actually. I believe avoided the chain by going under it.
And honestly, if I see an Execution call, I'm just ganking his top side.
Speaking of ganking, Licorice, that is not going to be enough. The riposte is going to be invested there as he gets on over, but there's a blast cone. Cannon Barrage this time is going to work out as Tarzan finishes it with a resonating strike, and that is no longer the Fiora on the map, and maybe an advantage for Griffin if Chovy can outplay this.
Well, we've seen this before. Blabber's willing to trade.
Yeah, well, it's double distortion to get himself over the wall, but
just out of range.
Didn't click him quite quick enough.
And even though that was a kill for Griffin, what do they really get out of it? Because C9 is able to send Blabber to the other side of the map, pick up a turret. Yes, Sword gets a little bit of farm. Really, they have to be able to do something here to this Sona Kench, which, believe me, it's pretty hard to do.
They might be able to get topside turret because you don't want to TP and it's dead already. We didn't even see the health bar there. Licorice does not want to teleport to it, even if it was healthier. So it is still structure for structure with a kill advantage to the side of Griffin, but I'm kind of with you, Jat, in that where is the point of ingress where Griffin are trading up with a meaningful lead rather than kind of incremental and what seems to be an overall picture that we can't help but be thinking is C9 favorite.
Well, as it ticks over 20 minutes, we need to start talking about the Baron, and neither team really has a lot of Baron damage. Bit of biffo there in the mid lane for the bottom laners, but nothing going to come of it. How are we supposed to set up for these Baron fights that are going to feel like slow motion after a lot of these
You put down 700,000 wards and then try to pick somebody.
We're going to need some more Nomad's medallions, guys.
Well, the thing is, both teams have 2 sight stones as well.
Yeah.
The third, maybe.
That's why I'm saying it. They got a lot of wards.
Yeah, a lot of wards, a lot of sweepers, so it's hard to see. Also, again, a fight with no Cannon Barrage. Let's see what happens.
It's going to be a lot of roots, though, coming in from that final chapter. Niski down to half health, but Chovy is almost just straight up dead. The stun does come in. Chovy surviving for so long. Crescendo onto 3, but nothing's going to come of it. Now C9 just going to regen all of that health. WWW from Sneaky.
Not often does the war of attrition go against a very farmed Lahens on this Yumi's sword.
Oh my goodness, that was a lot of damage onto the gangplank.
But you can see the battery of Sona keeping everyone absolutely full health. The Ocean Drake helping out so well with that.
Yeah, a bit of frustration there from Viper as well as he dives on forward. The teleport to get in towards the backside is there finally. It is going to be the Cannon Barrage and Viper flashing on top of Zazel. Great timing on the stopwatch as Viper eventually gets that kill, but that is going to be a late flash there from Chovy. Gets himself out, but will no longer be able to participate. Somehow Griffin have limped away from the fight with a kill, but they don't have an advantage.
And Licorice isn't even there. Licorice is getting the advantage on the side lane. They're getting the mid turret and a side turret off of this.
Still the incremental advantage goes the way of C9. They get 2 turrets for all of those Hydras. Niski?
Yeah, big flash out there from Chovy. Keeps himself alive. I believe that was a distortion, but now C9 will be able to move towards the bottom side of the map. Just feels like they're playing with more members on the map. 2
turrets, a Mountain Drake, C9. And this is with only level 10 previously on Sneaky. He just incrementally got to level 11, 40% CDR, and level 16. They win those wars of attrition even harder.
Yeah, and since the global audience isn't that familiar with carry Sona, the level 11 and level 16 breakpoints are very important because when Sona puts more points in her R, her basic ability cooldowns decrease as well. So a 40% CDR Sona that is level 16 is more equivalent to like 65% CDR on her Qs and just as a disco machine.
Again, heals, poke. It takes a very long time for anyone to die here. Chovy's clone goes down, the only real meaningful thing at the start. Chovy falls low, but it's so hard to actually kill anyone unless Viper gets an assassination.
Yeah, this is the Axe make your move out of the way from C9 as they're barreling down your mid lane as we jump back to live and Chovy has connected a chain. Not going to quite get there as Lahens pops on in, gets some zoomies. And Griffin are going to be all right for now, but this is the lane that we need to talk about because Licorice feels like he's been playing PvE.
Yeah, and he has no reason to ever stop playing PvE.
Agreed.
It would probably be a mistake if he actually arrives for a 5v5 team fight in this game.
Oh my goodness, almost a one-shot there onto Chovy. He's moving on out. They chose the right clone as he gets over the wall. The zoomies are going to keep him alive. But Griffin, even all of these little pokes are helping on C9's side because it opens the floor to the Fiora to do even more. Now going to be taking away some puppies from Tarzan.
The longer we think about it, the more the blind Fiora feels like a master stroke. It's a different type of read on Griffin than G2, but cut from a similar cloth. Still some scaling element with the Sonatam, the Fiora, and its inevitability. Speaking of inevitabilities, Baron starts. Will take a bit of time.
There's no vision from Griffin. They're going to check. Garen's going to be able to come and check this, but with the Mountain Drake, it'll still not go down fast.
No, come on, chat. What are you talking about?
So if
He
they
said
had,
slow motion, chat.
if they had 3 Mountain Drakes,
They can't get them. There's only one left.
Well, they'll be able to
if
get
they
at
had
least 2.
2 Mountain Drakes,
It would have been a 4,000 health, chat.
no.
They could have just stayed there in 50-50.
Meanwhile,
Licorice is just going to take an inhibitor turret, so that's the reasoning there. Sword with a bit of a frustration ultimate, but Viper is making his way in. That's going to be 4 people invested. The Baron has started. You better get this kill, Griffin. Otherwise, you're going to take absolutely nothing. Eventually, he's taken down, but the Baron is getting the same treatment. A teleport going to come in. Could still be the 50-50, but it doesn't get over the wall. It wasn't the smite that took the Baron. However, it was definitely C9.
Big play by C9. That's a death that is absolutely worth it for Licorice if they can convert Barons like that. Even with the slow Baron plus Mountain Drake, it takes so long to go and kill that even with Viper using his teleport, it doesn't matter.
It just feels like C9 a Bobo the Clown. You punch in the face, it snaps back up again, and all its elasticity. It giggles at you as you lose a turret, as you lose an inhibitor turret, as you lose a Baron. You just can't land a knockout punch on Cloud9.
Nope. And that was just a straight-up outplay in that Baron call. So 25.5 minutes into the game, C9, they already had absolute control, and now it only gets worse, augmented with that Baron buff.
Yeah, nobody can match Licorice. And then also, Griffin doesn't have the team composition to force a good 5v5 or 5v4 onto C9 because of the disengage that they have from the Sona Tahm Kench. So C9 is in an incredibly good situation if they can continue to pull this off.
I was so confident about where this game was going, about the fact that while Griffin have tools conventionally, the conventions went out when 700 supports were locked in and everyone was farming gold, sharing it.
Well, we got the hard engage. We're looking for it here as the Devour is used. Sneaky flashes away, but importantly, he is still alive. Viper.
Why is Licorice there?
Be so lucky. Yeah, Licorice is going to dive into the back of the fight. Tarzan goes down low, but the Fiora is dead. The Sona dies as well. Griffin may have found it. 3 kills now onto their roster, and Griffin can chase. That is definitely something that's in their wheelhouse, and now without Sona, they have to get the heck out of there.
It's a 3-for-1 for Griffin when C9 has Baron, and instead of just hard disengaging, C9 felt obliged to go in. Licorice ends up just teleporting in to die, even though he trades a kill onto Tarzan, and that Baron power play is in the negatives now.
Exactly, it seemed like an inevitability. They break the inhibitor given the Baron buff and Fiora. Chovy's still poking onto Niski and Zeyzal against the run of play.
Cannon Barrage comes in as Niski has to flash, gets out of the way of the final chapter, but Griffin now set their eyes onto the inhibitor turret as Lehens gets on out of there. Remember, this team does not have any siege whatsoever. It's just the Yuumi and I guess the LeBlanc that can get in there for that one, so Griffin back away.
And most crucially, they had no minion wave to actually kill that inhibitor turret. Let's watch the replay, and I believe it was the final chapter, yeah? Just Garen comes in, of course cannot stop his slows. They get the stun, and there was just no full disengage available as the deep teleport from Licorice was ill-advised.
Yeah, and it's because Sneaky took so much damage at the start of the fight before the Tahm Kench Devour could get him that he's unable to support Fiora when he goes in there. Cloud9 really need to stay quite grouped up and just kind of hope that they don't get connected on by those barrel chains. That's, I think, their best way to victory. And by grouped up, I mean blabber down. Licorice should be in the side lane.
You get one stumble. That was what we would call a stumble from Cloud9 in spite of everything that we talked about. Actually going to push away from the exposed inhibitor for now, as Licorice does not have his teleport up. Bamba power play.
Oh my goodness.
It's in the negatives.
Yeah, not too negative though onto C9's side, and they will hold on to about a 700 gold lead at 28 minutes. But now, Griffin considering something more as we head our sights back towards the mid lane, and the Mountain Drake is available once again. Tarzan thinking about a solo.
Yeah, and if Griffin want to go for another fight. They have flash windows. They burned so many flashes in that last fight, so there's a higher chance that Lehans and Viper would be able to get on top of Cloud9 and actually make an impact if they go while those flashes are still burning.
And actually, they have an initiator, an unlikely one. When Buster down is, here we go.
Yeah,
Blabber
dives in, doesn't get the chain onto Blabber, who jumps up into the sky, will survive for the moment, but now Tarzan's looking for him. The flash does come out, as now Chovy just going to be eating blast cones and jumping around this map. They're going to survive, and now C9 playing like they're in a little bit more trouble than they were before.
Especially because Licorice doesn't have side pressure. The fact that Licorice was forced into a recall because C9 had to give up mid lane priority means that Griffin is actually starting to fight back in this game.
And this is where the tricky execution of playing a side lane champion for an NA team will become more trickier. They have a teleport disadvantage, even though they have a split push advantage. And the champion I want to talk about, unlikely initiator, is the GP, because the GP slow.
Yeah.
At this point, with no flashes up and with everyone trying to disengage each other but not be able to have too much mobility, is something that can catch them napping.
And the next Baron is up in 1 minute and 15 seconds. So Griffin is doing their reset right now. Everyone's buying the max amount of control words. Viper didn't. He doesn't have the gold too, so that's his excuse. I think that's valid.
Okay, just needed to finish off his item there as okay. Chovy gets some zoomies back as Licorice is now in the mid lane with his team, but there's the connection onto Blabber. Does land himself the cocoon. Zazel now has that Devour on cooldown. Griffin, they may have found another team fight. There's the crescendo, but Sneaky only finds one, and Griffin are still on the chase. They do manage to step down the zone. A huge kick into the back line from Tarzan. The grand challenge is not one you want, Licorice. As Griffin, they don't lose anyone, and now they're going to be able to find the Fiora. Goes golden at the last second, but look at that spinning top of a Garen, and Viper takes down the top laner.
And that's the relentlessness of Griffin. They somehow managed to kill Sneaky through Tom Kench, and now 5 strong with double Mountain. Let's see how fast they take this Baron.
That was like 4 hard engages in the matter of 4 seconds.
And you have to talk about, the flash windows, but importantly, the fact that I don't think C9 can read correctly the threat windows of this Garen Yuumi combo, because with the Swifty boots, with the Deadman's Plate, with the Zoomies even, this Garen is just being a solo initiator, and 2 times in a row, they've been caught napping while trying to cross map.
The terrifying thing is that Viper didn't have to invest his flash into that.
No.
So he still has Q flash ability in the next fight, and let's check out the replay.
Because they're trying to, again, make something out of Licorice with no teleport up, and they just get run down. First Blabber, then Zazel. The moment Niski, Sneaky, Licorice can do anything, watch Licorice while Sneaky's getting popped. He's just trying to find an angle.
Yeah, Licorice and Niski never were able to retaliate any damage while that chase is happening through. That's the type of stuff they'd either need to be able to do, or while they're spending all this time running away, Licorice would need to be in a side lane. The fact that Griffin has corralled C9 is one of the reasons they're pulling this off.
They're doing it again as Licorice does get the riposte, but Viper is no cares in the world. Lays down the gigantic sword, and that is another dead Fiora. Not able to get any split push work done. That inhibitor turret fell a long time ago on the bottom side of the map, and now it's all Griffin.
Chovy!
We're trying to get it. No, it's turned around! Sneaky with the heals, helps out his Elise, locking down that kill, and now Griffin, without their mid laner, this could be a huge problem. Viper trying to spin himself away. Griffin, they're not going to be thwarted just yet, and Sword is on the bottom side of the map. That could have bought some time for C9.
Potentially a game-saving cocoon from Blabber there, because they were just going to poke and prod C9 to get open inhibitors, but now that it is a 4v4, Griffin may not have the ability to break this base.
Especially because of how much Baron time was. That's still 2 minutes on the Baron buff, so the War of Attrition would have gone the way of Griffin there, so... They get a deep breath. Remember, Chovy can't teleport back in, so there is a bit of a back window there. Sneaky takes a casual 70% of his health bar.
That was a big barrel from Sword there. Nice work weaving that one through. Says the empowered back timing is going to mean that the cocoon is not going to land onto the GP. C9 able to get outside of their base. It hasn't been broken yet, but the gold lead is in favor of Griffin now, but only 2.4 thousand. This is still anyone's game.
It is anyone's game, and this game has defied expectations in a number of different ways.
We're learning things here, Chad. This is tricky.
We're
figuring
figuring out on the
barely
fly.
knew what the expectations were, Chad.
Garen better hyper carry than Sona?
It's seeming increasingly yes, because let's talk about
I'm making a tier list here. Help me out.
We were talking about how, yeah, no problem, they'll have disengage as TP out attempt here. We're getting interrupted.
Oh, not going to work out there. As see you later, Fiora.
But
Back
then,
again.
yeah, but then the other thing is also, Griffin is just more coordinated than C9. That's what we're also learning. And something about Sven Skaren versus Blabber that I talked about in North America is that the early game was better with Blabber, but the mid and late was always better with Sven Skaren. So I think there will be lots of questions about C9's roster choices from here on out.
Well, Griffin are going to look for this siege now onto C9. Remember, late game team fights were what this team was known for, as this turret now going very low. That is a very long chain to land onto Blabber, but he's going to survive for the moment, and Zeyzal with the Devour gets rid of that empowered siege minion. Griffin, they only have 30 seconds left on that Baron power play, and Sword has dealt with the mid lane inhibitor turret. Just too many open doors on C9's side of the map. 10 seconds left until Licorice is back available. Chovy connects another chain. Takes a lot of damage for it, but there's the Cannon Barrage. We're going for another hard engage, waiting for the final chapter to be read out here from Lehens, but he's going to hold on to it for the moment. Finally, throws that one out. Doesn't find any of the snares, but they do find 2 inhibitors, and Griffin has laid waste to C9's base.
And now, with 2 inhibitors down, there never really will be a window for Licorice to pull off a split push. His teleport was interrupted and will not be off cooldown until maybe after this game is over. And small point I was trying to get to is that C9 kept trying to set up in mid lane with Sneaky and Niski as a siege duo. How long the lane was with inner turrets down on both sides is why they kept getting run down.
Yeah.
They returned to the scene of the crime a second time, and that seems to be the death knell, because suddenly there needs to be a very creative way to flip the script by C9.
And now double Mortal Reminder completed. 1 for Sword, 1 for Viper. Morellonomicon done for Chovy as well. The heals from Sneaky are going to be largely thwarted on the side of Griffin. And now, as you can see, it was a landmass for C9, but now they're into the red ocean of Griffin's gold lead.
Yeah, that's exactly what we just saw. It's awesome.
I felt like I was aggrandizing just a little bit, but Griffin now setting up for the next Baron. That's going to be another minute and a half away, but they want control of this river.
Yeah, and also C9 doesn't have that long because they need to send someone bottom and they don't have teleport on Licorice. So they'd have to send Sneaky bottom, and even if a late game Sona can be stacked, they can't wave clear. So they're actually just trying to get something done by sending all 5 people mid.
Well, they are going to be able to take down this inner turret. Maybe they're going to go for some sort of brute force play. Blabber, I believe, is the villain at the moment. Chovy gets on over, finds Zeyzal, roots him up there with the chain. But not going to continue
Might
further
get caught
forward.
here again.
I mean, they're just trying to keep C9 busy as much as possible because Sword's taking side waves as the bot lane is crashing. If now they push C9 all the way back here, then they can turn for the spawn of Baron in 50 seconds.
Yeah, 45 onto that one now as Licorice has to deal with so many super creeps that have caved in. And now the Cannon Barrage onto 4 members. A lot of damage is down. What the heck happened to Blabber? He explodes with the pistol shot coming in from Sword. And now Niski dives forward, but so does Chovy. They're going to find the damage. It's going to be Niski making his way back to the fountain. No summoner spells available as Griffin turn up. The barrels are huge, and now with every inhibitor down, it's Griffin looking for a possibility to win the game. Chovy tries to find Licorice, but that's a great riposte. Keeps him alive.
With 3 inhibitors down and the jungler dead, Griffin is really full of options. You have to credit Sword there for that GP play. It looked like he 1v4'd, had the whole team running away from him and still killed Blabber. We're having these discussions about Garen versus Sona scale, and GP also has an argument.
And we were also having conversations about Sword and why he was on this roster, right? If he's going to play like this is absolutely the right call from Griffin. So Sword attempting to silence the haters, maybe one step closer now as look at that gorgeous barrel chain.
Yeah, that did half the health, and then the Cannon Barrage started. The pistol shot to 843 barrel crit onto Elise. That's about half a health. And down into the death chamber. Sword putting it together. 1-0 on the GP lifetime, seeming like 2-0 on the cards.
That's 100% win rate, Papa Smithy. My kind of sample size as well.
Limited.
Yeah, very limited. But 100%'s 100%, and Sword looking for the second win and to put them one step over Cloud9 as we move towards the second round robin. Only one more match of that first round robin to come after this one.
Don't forget, this is G2's group. They will play in the last match of the day. The head-to-head between Griffin and C9 with HKA at the moment as a afterthought suggests that it's whoever honestly gets the advantage between these two, and it seems like Griffin will get the first.
Yeah, trying to close this one out, but they're going to still have to do it. A lot of short-range champions here, but Viper gets a Q onto this Nexus turret. Chovy off to the side. Licorice trying to get that fight in, but Viper is so incredibly fast. He is going to go down to the GAs. The final chapter is going to come through. Devour down for Zeyzal is so huge onto Licorice to get him back to the fountain and keep him alive, but Griffin still have everyone up, and they've got so many super creeps bearing down on C9.
Access to the fountain and also Sona means a lot of healing. We can retool this once more.
Yep, also still has the Guardian Angel, so Licorice is very dangerous here for Griffin. They've got a long way to get back as well, but look at these super creeps. The Baron buff still going to be there as well as Chovy has to flash to get out of the turret range as now Blabber goes up into the sky, no longer has that repel, and look at these Nexus turrets. They're just getting berated by all of these minions. It's just insane. Zeyzal, another great activation of the Grey Health, and C9 have kept themselves alive, but there is an army that's on Griffin's side trying to bear down on this Nexus.
Licorice
into the backside. Yeah, Licorice looking for some shot to find it. Gets the grand challenge for all that extra healing as well. But you can see the Nexus is now bare. C9, they found Tarzan. He's
Griffin
desperately
can't end.
looking for the Nexus. Okay, Lahen's final chapter, but it's not going to be that whatsoever as Griffin have to get out of there.
This is just absurd. Like, they have every possible minion hitting C9's base, and C9 have so few tools to even deal with the minions, but Licorice dive bombs the backline, gets kills, a mid-inhib respawns, and C9 repelled the push.
That is the Spear of Shojin, level 18 Fiora, putting out the sick deeps and also having a lot of crowd control depending on how often he can hit people with his riposte. They're looking for exit kills here.
Oh, he doesn't have a Yumi with him.
Cocoon is going to land.
He's still going.
He also runs really fast.
Yeah.
Deadman's Plate and Swifty boots.
I mean, Sona's fast too.
No,
I can see why they didn't
Garen
change.
You can sing as much Songs of Celerity at me as you want, Jap, but you ain't catching up to that guy. As we have a look at this fight one more time, it was a bit of a disaster, but it was a lot of fun.
Little things like being able to pop into the fountain and the Sona, they had kind of two fountains here, meant that there was never enough of a health bar advantage with this many super minions pushing in, and then Licorice just goes in the backline. Rambo, he had the GA advantage after popping it earlier. Somehow Teamfight Fiora has proven to be a trump card in extending the length of this game.
Yeah, and it's almost like Griffin just disconnected. We talk about this team as having that hive mind, but something certainly went wrong.
Look at that!
All right, here we go.
Elder Drake.
Let's 5v5 the Elder Drake. There's actually not a huge inherent advantage.
TP wards available. Griffin can look for a backdoor too.
Yeah. And Viper
they
is
could.
the one with that teleport available. Sword doesn't, Chovy
He could take
doesn't.
Yumi with him.
One goes out.
he's
The
got like a
last
few
one would
seconds.
have to be teleported on now. It dies
Okay.
as well.
Griffin very good at getting multiple teleports onto wards into enemy bases, though. We've seen this one before.
The famous Evelyn ult backwards
yeah.
and teleport end for Griffin against SKT earlier this year. They pulled back. They couldn't have known the health bars or the amount of time those wards would last. So smarter C9 to recall here, even though we had the extra information about the length of time on those wards. And suddenly,
The base is
stack
repaired.
Elder. Repaired is a strong word.
I mean, there's none of the things that fight back.
If your
However,
boat has
the big
holes
bad
on it and you
guys-
put band-aids, is it repaired?
The inhibitor looks brand new.
Does it float? Does it float, guys?
Amazon priority shipping.
Well, Griffin now powered up with that Elder Drake. Looking to try and once again rid Cloud9 of their inhibitors. Half health on the mid outer, but C9 still have the opportunity for a fight if they can find one. Remember, only one of these inhibitors needs to go down, and then 5 members of Griffin can all run towards this Nexus and possibly just take it down.
They need buddy system here to repel those. So there should be a 3-lane push that gets them at least one inhibitor bloodlessly. But with Song of Celerity and people walking up, that time is not yet now.
Yep, it's a 1-2-2 happening, but 1-3 and
He's just
down goes Niski. See you later. That's the final chapter. It comes in, it grabs the kill, and now C9 without their Zoe. Chovy jumping back and forth as that is a gigantic cannon barrage. So much damage here onto C9. Remember, there are no structures left. Griffin's going to find the Tom Kench. Licorice into the backline, though, gets the grand challenge, but he's down to that GA. Tarzan grabs his opposite number, and there's the spin to win. Viper going to were weird, they were wonderful, the team compositions were crazy, but Griffin have found it in the end. Another ultimate in the one team fight from Lehens, and the last Q secures it for Griffin and puts them 2-1 at the end of their round robin.
You know, Jack, we've been casting League of Legends for more than a decade if we put our numbers together, and yet there's probably never been a game quite like that defied expectation, dropped expectation, execution. That was weird and wonderful, to say the least.
Yeah, watching Faker come back to the World Championship after 7 years happened at the start of the day. Getting to see what happens with Garen Yumi versus Sona Tom Kench. Potentially a highlight. Greater than the first one, depending on how you look at it.
It was a light. I'm more towards the low light side, but sure, yeah.
However,
absolutely.
Have we proven which is better out of the Garen Yumi and the Sona Tom Kench? Because we have a fun fact. The Garen Yumi didn't die at all this entire game.
It's true. He spun a lot and won at least once.
100% of this game.
And I actually still don't know what duo is better, but I know Griffin was better in this game because it did feel like when we were going through the first 20 or 25 minutes, it felt like C9 was going to have the answers. It felt like they'd be able to group